Dave, after my last trip to the grocery store, I have decided to become a vegetarian. And here's why. The prices of meat are through the roof.
Yeah.
According to government figures, as of June, the price of ground chuck was 50% higher than it was a year ago. The price of steak was up 25%. Pork chops up 23%.
Right.
I mean, you can't afford to be a meat eater anymore.
All right, so sirloin steak is over $10 a pound. It was at the beginning of the year. It was like $8. It's
gonna be rice and beans for me from now on. What is going on here? What's behind this, Dave?
Well, COVID-19 is behind it. The coronavirus that we've all living in fear of is disrupted the market for meat, and it's hurting the cattle farmers as well. They are not benefiting from these higher prices.
Then who is making the big bucks here? Is it the supermarkets? Is anybody making big bucks?
No, it's not the supermarkets. They're just passing on their costs. Now, some farming groups would tell you that it's the middlemen who are, the buying organizations and the meat packers that are benefiting from their monopoly power, and it is a very concentrated industry. But it's more complicated than that. I mean, COVID has had just a lot of affected the industry in a number of ways. I mean, first there were a lot of the packing plants had to close temporarily, some for quite a few days during the spring, which led to shortages, and even more importantly, consumers were worried about shortages and they rushed to the supermarket to stock up. So there was a lot of kind of panic buying. That's why your retail prices have shot up, because there were spot shortages. And at the farmer level, these packing plants that weren't open weren't buying cattle, so there was kind of a glut of cattle on the market, as
But we've heard of
demand for them for a while, and they still haven't caught up to that.
Well, we've heard of farmers just killing their animals and burying them. I mean, because they couldn't sell them. I mean, that's so if I'm paying, the farmer isn't making the money. It's then that evil middleman, the processor. Is he getting rich? I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure. They have had some increased costs, as a result of COVID. They've had to do a lot of more sanitizing at their plants and facilities. They've had these shutdowns, which are costly. It's not, and their volumes are down, so they're not making the money that they were. It's really, it's hurting everybody, but it's hurting, I think, the farmers and the consumers at either end of the supply chain probably the most.
That's you'd figure that if they are producing less meat, the slaughterhouses, but they're doing it at a higher price, they may be coming out okay.
I would think so.
Know.
Yeah, interesting. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has an investigation going on over whether there's been improper, kind of price manipulation, or that the packers have improperly benefited from this situation.
Well, that is possible, because we have a concentrated industry. 80% of the volume is in 4 packers, and you wonder, if I'm, a cattleman in North Dakota, do I have much choice about where I sell my beef? And does that give, for instance, if there's only one big processing plant up there and I have to drive them 200 miles to sell it to somebody else, there could be some monopoly pricing power. What do you think?
I think there is. There always has been, and the industry's grown more concentrated in recent years. There's been a lot of consolidation. So that potential for monopoly power exists. I talked to some ag economists, and they say, just from the price data, it's not clear that any kind of manipulation or monopolistic pricing is going on. It appears to, you can account for everything that's happened by these extreme effects on supply and demand. And don't forget that a big Tyson plant in Kansas was shut down by a fire just like a year ago. So that there were, even going into the COVID crisis, there was limited capacity in the industry.
Well, we're still seeing, limits on production. We're still seeing these outbreaks at these processing plants that cause them to perhaps not shut down completely, but certainly workers don't show up and they can't produce it as well as they could. And the safety measures, having to keep people further apart, maybe slowing down the production lines.
Yeah.
So is there any hope for me as a meat eater, or am I?
No, the ag economists I talked to said they expect prices to remain high for some time. And usually, what happens in the industry cycle is when cattlemen aren't able to make money, they reduce the size of their herds. They breed fewer calves and raise fewer head of cattle. So you'll see that happen. That will maybe improve their situation, but it'll keep retail prices high. Now the only thing that might change that is if a lot of people do what you're talking about and just stop buying beef. They trade down from beef to cheaper sources of protein like chicken, or they stop eating meat entirely. And in a recession, that does happen to some extent, just because a lot of people's incomes have been affected. They can't afford that $10 sirloin. But the ag economists say that this situation of high prices at retail and difficulties for farmers probably going to persist well into next year at least.
Oh well, rice and beans for me, Dave.
Okay.